Good afternoon, and welcome to today's Adweek webinar on Are You Marketing to Consumers or Devices? How to Get Past Omnichannel's Identity Crisis, which is brought to you in partnership with Neustar. I'm Stuart File, Custom Publishing Director at Adweek, and I will be your host for today's event. Just want to take a second and go over a few things on using the On24 platform if you're not familiar with it, and also set the stage for today's event. In terms of timing, the formal presentation will go on for about 35 to 40 minutes. Afterwards, we will have time for about 15 minutes or so of Q&A. If you have a question for today's presenters, please use the Q&A tool at the bottom of your On24 screen. I want to point out a couple of the other widgets there that are of interest. You'll notice that we have a Twitter widget, which will give you a live Twitter stream, and we urge you to contribute to that if you want to be part of the conversation. And we are using the hashtag AdweekNewsStar. And that'll be generated automatically through the tool, but if you want to put it in manually, you're welcome to do that as well, and you'll see that at the bottom of each slide. Also want to mention that there are a few other sharing tools down there, including a way for you to email a colleague if you want to alert them to today's event. You'll also see down there the resource list folder. Inside that folder, you'll see a copy of today's slide deck if you want a copy, as well as a link to Neustar's website and a schedule of upcoming and on-demand Adweek webinars. Or you can always go to www.adweek.com/webinars. So let me introduce today's speakers. We're going to have a very interesting presentation related to data management platforms, what to look for in them, and give you some insights into how to use them effectively and answer some of the questions that you might have. It's going to be an interesting Q&A type format. Our speakers are Richard Joyce, who's Senior Analyst at Forrester Research. And Richard serves the B2C marketing professionals, covers programmatic media buying, optimization, and measurement. And he actually comes to Forrester from a background in the ad tech and programmatic world. He's joined by Michael Schoen. Michael is VP of Marketing Services at Neustar. He leads the team behind Neustar's Platform One, which is an integrated marketing solution that gives marketers a complete real-time portrait of their customers and prospects based on accurate data, enabling a personalized dialogue across all marketing channels. Michael, let me pass this over to you, so maybe you can set the stage for today's presentation.
Great. Thank you, Stuart, and thank you, everyone, for joining this afternoon. We have a very interesting, relevant, and timely topic for us to discuss. You know, we've seen over the past few years so much promise in digital media in terms of the ability to deliver on personalized marketing to individual consumers based on data. It's really been embodied in the trend towards programmatic media buying. But the challenge is that this really should not be just a digital promise. And what we're increasingly seeing is that marketers are looking for the ability to achieve the promise of personalized marketing across all channels. At the center of this solution has been the data management platform, or DMP. And in today's discussion, we're going to dive into what is a DMP, how is it being used today, and what are the critical elements to ensure that this type of platform in the future can really deliver on the promise of omni-channel marketing. So with that, I'm going to pass off to Stuart for us to start going through some of these questions.
Great. So first question that we've got here, and I think it's a pretty basic one. That's, what problems does a DMP help solve?
Yeah, I'll jump in and take that one. I think if you take a step back and you look at the broader picture, the DMP for marketers is really about getting a better understanding of our customers as well as the media that we're using to message to those customers. And sort of the immediate problem that you see the DMP helping marketers solve is sort of relevant to this cartoon that we see up here. Right, it's getting a better understanding of, for example, where there might be waste or inefficiencies in how we're communicating with our customers, but also, which is another key problem that the DMP helps address, which is making that understanding actionable, right? Not continuing to ignore the data that's telling us that we can improve the way that we're messaging to our consumers and improve the way that we're buying digital media. And really what we're starting to see is that because there's so many disparate data sources, data is everywhere and it's accessible and we need to be able to use it, the DMP really is helping marketers to leverage that data, create that understanding of their customer and media, and then acting on that data.
Yeah, so Richard,
Would you
I agree. I mean, I think we see that the DMP has been born out of the needs of digital media, but the problems that the DMP are solving are evolving. So the original concept was catered primarily towards those digital media buyers who were trying to understand what aspects of their media were working and which ones were not, and then optimize to ensure increased efficiency. But there's still huge unrealized potential as additional data elements are being integrated into DMP platforms, including email data, point of sale, customer CRM data, and additional activation channels. We're seeing that marketers are increasingly looking to the DMP as a central repository that can inform not just digital media, but all paid media, but then also drive better insight into site personalization, call center remarketing, creative development, better customer interactions, and the overall marketing strategy.
Definitely seeing marketers on our side as well starting to explore how that DMP is adding value beyond just digital media buying. So totally agree with you there.
So let's hop over to our second question. Oh, yeah. Here we go. Sorry about that. When you're looking at a data management platform, what should it be able to do? What are some of the basic functionalities that you want to look for?
Yeah, so I think that when marketers have been thinking about what they want data management platforms to do for them and the basic functions there, really we're looking at three functionalities, right? The ability to ingest various types of data, the ability to process those types of data into something useful, and again, like Michael mentioned before, not just relevant to digital media buying, and finally distribute those insights to help marketer decisions, right? Again, talking about going beyond digital media buying and informing email service providers, website optimization, and other marketing technologies that can help, that can utilize some of this data, this process data. One example that I thought was very interesting that we've heard in the space is, for example, being able to collect device IDs and the locations of those IDs to then overlay certain data points which can give us insight into not only demographics but also interests, and use that information, that insight, to confirm specific, let's say where millennials are, right, and to inform where you might want to put digital out-of-home advertisement or other advertisement that might not directly be connected to some of your digital media buying efforts. And really, when we look at this focus on data, this is where we start to see that we need this DMP to aggregate and analyze, identify different strengths and values and score different audience segments that we have so that we're able to exploit some of those pieces. And really this slide just highlights some of the first-party data that can be used to start informing marketing overall, right? When we start to think about social sharing, CRM data, email data and email lists, taking in site analytics, and registration data to really help in really making our overall marketing efforts a little bit more dynamic and adaptable to consumer behavior and what they're doing out in the space today. Would you agree with that, Michael?
Yes, I agree, and I think you captured kind of the headline capabilities of a DMP really well, which is really about ingesting data, processing and normalizing that data so it can be you can make sense of it, and then making some decisions and then distributing audiences out. Those are clearly the headlines. But in our view, the most critical component, and the one that's often overlooked, is the ability to recognize the many identities that a consumer may express themselves through on both through both digital and offline activities. If you think about your own online activity, to the extent that you're taking place in any kind of identifiable activities, you've got a number of different identities that you're operating through. It might be your Twitter handle, your Facebook ID, multiple different email addresses. And then clearly you have all of your offline activities. And so in order for DMP to deliver on the promise that we've been talking about, you really need to solve this problem. And this is where DMPs often fall short, and it turns out it's because this is actually a really hard problem. And what it requires is that you're working with someone who has a strong, authoritative offline identity and the ability to tie in all of this data in that kind of normalization process to that offline identity so you can make sense of it all.
Okay, so let's move on to oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's I was just saying that I agree that cross-device identification process, and not even, I think cross-device is really kind of just scratching the surface, but understanding that identity across even different marketing technology systems is something that can be challenging for marketers and the DMP solutions that exist out there today. So I definitely agree with you, Michael, there.
So Richard, let's hop to question 3 here. And as we're doing this, I just want to, we have some people in the audience who may have hopped in late, and so it might help if maybe we can give a quick definition again of a DMP, of a data management platform, just so that we have some context for them. But on this as well, I guess we also want to certainly touch on what are marketers using DMP for today.
Yeah, I mean, I think Forrester has a pretty broad definition for the DMP, right? It's a data management platform. It serves as a unified technology platform that provides really a holistic view of the customer, right? And it's able to do that through basic functionalities in terms of ingesting data, processing that data, and being able to distribute that data. But Michael, if you have another definition or a deeper definition, then feel free to add to that there.
No, so I honestly completely agree with that definition, and I think that the Forrester definition, as broad as it is exactly right. And I think actually as we get into the question we're looking at now, which is how are people using it, I think the challenge is that most DMPs address the definition you just provided with a very strong focus just on digital media. I mean, I think what's interesting to think about what happens if you have a platform that adheres to that same definition, but is not strictly in the digital world.
Yep, certainly.
So let's touch on on how marketers are using it.
Yeah. If we look at some of the more widely adopted techniques for using some of this, the data that's available to us today, and Michael is definitely right in when we're looking at a lot of the focus of DMPs today being around digital data, right? The data that's available around digital. And I think that is part of kind of where we see marketers having challenges in using the DMPs, right? Which is that type of data allows them to do really limits some of their capabilities. So today, what we see is that most marketers are in the space are using that digital data to create customer segmentations and develop modeling. And when we interviewed or when Forrester surveyed some of the marketing professionals in the space that were using some of these techniques, that's what we found is that by centering around this digital data, a big some of the widely adopted techniques, right, were customer segmentation and creating those different models. But as we look sort of to future adoption, right, what we see is that we're becoming a little bit more interested in pathway analytics, and obviously with offline information, those sort of pathway analysis can become a lot stronger, right? They can also work to inform next best action models, as well as give us a little bit more insight into geolocation analytics, right? And those are some key concepts and techniques that marketers are interested in leveraging some of this technology for in the future. But interestingly, we were able to find that leaders today, some quick stats here, were leaders as opposed to laggards, and that's how Forrester kind of defines people who are doing something very well versus people who are maybe not doing something as well, right? We see that leaders are using 6 data sources weekly, which is 2 times more than what laggards are doing. They're applying those data sources and the insights that they're generating from those data sources across 9 channels, which is 3 times more than what laggards are doing. And really they're using these tools and using these techniques through real-time analytics, right? And they're 2 times more likely as leaders to be using those real-time analytics to inform some of their marketing decisioning versus what we see from laggards. So while I think today, and Michael, certainly looking to you to confirm this from some of the work that you guys are doing at Neustar, but really I feel like we've only started to scratch the surface when it comes to leveraging some of this technology and how marketers are currently utilizing DMPs in terms of audience segmentation and modeling, which can be valuable, but again, just sort of the tip of the iceberg there.
Yeah, I agreed. We're really only scratching the surface at this point. We also see most marketers today still being very focused on using a DMP primarily for media buying optimization. A typical example we see is a customer who might be running a summer sales promotion that's running across multiple DSPs, potentially in video and display, a couple of ad networks, and a premium buy and a publisher, and then using the DMP to aggregate performance, understand the audiences that may be popping across that buy, understanding optimal frequency, and making some kind of fairly tactical decisions. And these are all great use cases, and customers are seeing positive ROI from the improvements they're getting from the digital media buying. But again, this is fairly tactical stuff. What we are starting to see is some clients who are being a little bit more sophisticated and are leveraging integrations into market analytics and segmentation and offline identity to unlock some more sophisticated use cases. So more advanced audience analysis, true communications planning, and then cross-channel campaign planning that really gets at understanding the extent to which their consumers are engaging across multiple channels, both digital and offline. I think we can move to the next question.
Okay, so yes, are marketers using DMPs to their fullest capacity now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that through the conversations that I've had with marketers, and obviously some of the stuff that Michael, you've seen at Neustar, I think that the answer to that is that there's only a very small percentage of marketers, sophisticated marketers, that are making that leap, and I think that goes back to a little bit of what we talked about before, and this idea that there's that focus on just that digital data. There's a lot of players in the space that talk about DMP capabilities, but maybe have their origins in different aspects of the industry that aren't necessarily fulfilling on the needs that marketers have to really take the use of this type of technology to the level that we've been talking about a little bit here, right? Going beyond digital media buying. Really, in order for us to start adding that value and going beyond digital media buying, it's going to take a focus on all different types of data and all the disparate sources of data that we have versus, again, like we were talking about before, just focusing on the digital aspect there.
Yeah, I mean, so Richard, it's pretty clear you and I agree on this point of kind of the unfulfilled promise of the DMP. I think there are a couple of reasons for that. The first one is, to be honest, this is organizationally hard. You're dealing with a platform that has the capability to deliver value across a big swath of the marketing organization, though typically it's often engaged by only a single component. We also see that that many brands are starting to make, and some have already made, some significant investments in analytics, and it's built up capabilities in-house in terms of their ability to do true data science on all of the data that folks are starting to be able to consume about their consumers. And the challenge is, it's kind of ironic, but for all the data that's available in the digital space, the reality is that most of it's been locked up within those digital platforms. And I think what we're going to start to see, and certainly where Neustar is taking our platform, is to really empower the data science teams of our clients to be able to swim in all of the data that is available. Again, not just from the digital perspective, but truly omni-channel, and enable these clients to deliver on that promise by getting their hands deep into the data, applying new big data techniques, coming up with custom models that make sense of their consumers, and then activate on that from a decision perspective.
All right.
Okay, let's hop over to question 5. I know one of the things you'd mentioned here is that, again, marketers are primarily looking at DMPs for media buying, but what are some of the new use cases? What are some of the opportunities that are presented when you're using a DMP beyond media buying?
Yeah, I think we've certainly touched on a few of these already. The more common ones that I hear marketers start to talk about and explore the capabilities of their DMP beyond just digital media buying really are in content management, website optimization, creative development. But I also start to see very interesting opportunities as it pertains to like second-party data. While it's still digital, I think it's very interesting. Co-marketing opportunities, maybe between brands and retailers, and in really extreme or in some of those advanced cases, you even start to see marketers start to even optimize like their inventory supply chains between between retailers, the different brands and sort of the retailers that they have within their retailer network. So I think it's again, some of those advanced marketers are taking advantage of some of the opportunities that exist within using the DMP beyond media buying, but still very early days in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed that it is early days, but we're certainly seeing that there are opportunities that abound if you can get past some of these organizational challenges we've talked about, and really get an accurate picture of your customer from an offline perspective with some true identity across channels and devices. So, considering some use cases, we're working with clients with a solution we're referring to as omni-channel remarketing, which is allowing customers to take information and consumer engagements they have from call center data and from web data, and then leverage that, design custom audiences, and remarket to those consumers across multiple channels. So again, what's different here than the traditional digital retargeting that everyone's been talking about is the idea that you're taking that approach, but you're truly blending offline and online. And the key to this is a DMP that's got this concept of authoritative identity that allows you to link some unique engagement opportunities, again, like the call center, and then be able to remarket through email, direct mail, display, et cetera. We're also seeing customers who are leveraging stronger analytic capabilities. So imagine being able to take and apply the same kinds of insights you think about from a digital perspective, so understanding audiences and audience segments and media exposures. But then look at that from a geographic perspective in terms of markets in which you may have storefronts or reselling channels. And being able to blend truly the worlds of marketing technology and advertising technology to make real-life decisions about how you want to engage with your customers that are informed by and leverage some of the same tools as used in digital, but not being strictly limited to digital.
Okay, so maybe now's a good time to look at some of the challenges that marketers are facing when it comes to putting in using a DMP.
Yeah, I think the big one that Michael pointed out is building that business case internally, right? It's not. I think as marketers, we look at the DSP and how that has improved some of the efficiencies that we see from a digital media buying perspective, and sort of expect that the DMP can immediately add some of that value that we are accustomed to from a DSP standpoint, right? But really, I think what you start to see a lot of marketers do today is, not take that short-term approach to that, right? Looking at it more as a long-term investment and trying to evaluate the return on investment and build that business case similarly to the way that they would some of the other marketing technology that they use. Another challenge that we might have touched on a little bit is, just personnel, right? Staffing the right people to help in the analysis of the data and the integrating of systems. While there are some marketers out there that are equipped to start building out teams like that, I think it's very important for marketers today to leverage some of their external resources and external partners to help in that process, right? To lean on companies and vendors that have those existing skill sets, and that can be easily outsourced by marketers today as they start to build that practice up internally. Also, just education, which I think goes hand in hand with the organization and building the business case. In some of the surveys that we put out in the space, even programmatic buying, right, is still something that is not well understood in marketing organizations. So education is going to be continual, and as we start to add wearable data and these other tech disruptions, we really need to understand that education is going to be continuous. Some of the operational challenges that we come across is finding what the right data is to use, right? Because this data is everywhere and it's accessible, it's important to understand or try to get a good understanding of what data will be valuable to you and help you in generating the marketing objectives that you needed to help you generate. Making sure that data is timely, right? When you start to consider different offline data sources, sometimes it can be a challenge to ensure that the ingestion of that data and the use of that data is timely enough. And then finally, the quality of the data. I think that's something that is certainly a large challenge that marketers face, understanding the quality, especially of external data, and how that can impact some of the marketing decisions that you're making today. But being able to get the most quality and timely and right data are things that are challenges that marketers face in using some of using DMPs and using some of this ad technology.
Thank you, Richard. Yeah, so if I could go back to your first point, I completely agree on the business case challenge, and the importance of getting that correct. It's often the path of least organizational resistance to carve out even just the budget to pay for a DMP from the digital media budget. But what we see is that leads to often a self-fulfilling prophecy because it's come from the media budget. The focus on delivering value out of a DMP is entirely within that single channel, and you end up implementing a solution that can only impact that single solution. And so you've created that challenge yourself. That's why, from our perspective, it's also important to ensure that you're working with a partner who's clearly recognized as a neutral party, who's free of any real or even perceived conflict of interest that tend to interfere with the ability to have comprehensive and effective integrations across the entire ecosystem. So you need to think more broadly about the marketing challenge that you're trying to solve, which again should not simply be a digital one, and ensure that the way you've structured your engagement is really aligned with achieving that goal. I'd also agree with your kind of operational and staffing concern. Every DMP offers effectively a self-service console. So DMP is effectively a platform where, in theory, the brand can completely self-operate, deploy tags on their own, measure inventory media on their own, create audiences on their own. The reality is that this is hard, and it really is beneficial for clients to think about a true partnership. You're not simply just buying a technology that you then deploy within your organization. You need to expect that this is a true partnership in which you can be working with the teams and leveraging their experience in order to get the best value. And then agreed on that quality point. I think we're actually going to talk about that a bit more. The importance not just of having high quality data as an input, but then ensuring that your data processing and normalization process is of high quality as well. You clearly need good data in, but you also need to make sure that you don't incorrectly munch the data as you're processing it.
Yep, agree.
Great.
So question 7 of 10 here, just where do most DMPs fail in creating a 360-degree view of an individual and performance?
Yeah, I think we talked quite a bit about this topic. It's popped up several times throughout the course of the discussion. If we move to the next slide, what we're seeing, right, and this still pertains to sort of the digital data ecosystem, but really the ability to create these cross-device user identification connections, right, I think it can be a challenge when you start to think of probabilistic matching versus deterministic matching, right? What sort of accuracy ratings do you have to rely on from a probabilistic standpoint? But from a deterministic standpoint, how scalable are some of those data sources that you have when you start to make those addressable? And one thing that doesn't even come into the equation because we're still in that sort of digital data landscape is the incorporation of offline activity. That is still something when we start to think about the right data and we start to think about the timeliness of that data is something that's still very difficult for many of the ad tech platforms out there. So I think that I think it's still early days, even in the sense of just cross-system and cross-device identification of individuals. So, it's very important to have that good, solid foundation in being able to identify those individuals across multiple systems and devices. If we are really going to get to that sort of holy grail of the 360-degree view of an individual and the performance of our media as it pertains to our other marketing efforts, right? Since it's not just about digital media buying, but the effectiveness of our marketing overall from an individual standpoint. I think there's still a long way to go there.
Yeah, so I completely agree that this is a hard challenge. I think from our perspective, the solution to the problem really starts on, again, that concept of authoritative offline identity. So the slide I have up now is just kind of illustrating the data onboarding process. This is the process of trying to match offline data to online. And that process has to start by looking from an offline perspective. And the key aspect to us of this offline identity is the concept of a fractional identifier. So the identity of Michael Schoen can be identified by a name and address, can be identified by a phone number, an email address, and the reality for most folks actually is you've got a number of email addresses. There are 4 email addresses that I use a lot. And the reason why those fractional identifiers are important comes into play when you look at the next step, which is then matching that offline identity to an online presence to cookies and devices. Richard, you talked about the process of linking devices together and devices and cookies, and there are a variety of techniques. There are a variety of techniques in which that is being done, and those clusters are created. And in many cases, what you end up creating is multiple clusters of cookies and devices that are linked together that may be associated with some offline data. But if you don't have a good persistent offline ID for an individual, you can end up with effectively split personalities. So again, I mentioned that I have 4 email addresses. I think that many marketers are effectively dealing with 4 different views of me. And they may have some ability to link multiple cookies and devices, but they end up being split between the multiple identities they may have expressed online. And so the key to our solution is recognizing that the 4 email addresses that are Michael Schoen are actually one individual, and those individual parts of the graph of cookies and devices actually all belong together. So you get greater accuracy and greater reach when you start looking at things from that 360-degree perspective. Another part.
Sorry, I was just going to comment also about shared devices, things like tablets, connected TV, and that split personality challenge that a lot of the marketers and ad tech face by not having that sort of offline foundation, right? Also adds to that dilemma there.
Absolutely. And then the other point I wanted to make here is, once you've got a good 360-degree view of a consumer, you then need to make good decisions about the data you're going to use. So there are many marketers who believe they've got a decent view of the consumer, but then choose to leverage only online behavioral data for making decisions. I mean, that's not going to make a whole lot of sense when you consider that, in fact, there's a lot of other information available about consumers when you've got that full view. So we work with customers to leverage a segmentation framework that allows them to think about their audiences in a way that's truly cross-channel. So use offline and online data together when you're engaging with that customer across both channels.
So our next question here, what types of data or systems should be able to integrate with the DMP?
Yeah, I think at the basic level, and we talked about sort of that minimum or that lower set bar. We're at least looking at digital audiences, digital audience data, campaign data, right? Digital campaign data, and at least your digital data sources should be able to flow very easily in and out of the DMP, across channels and devices. So, I think that's sort of the basic need But I think, as we start to look at the DMP of the future, I think marketers are really upping that expectation that, all different types of data, whether it's digital or not, needs to be able to flow very easily in and out of the DMPs, right, the future DMP. So.
Yeah, agreed. Our focus there has really been about just reducing the friction. So obviously, some of the most valuable data is going to be our customers' first-party data, whether that's their CRM files or their offline sales transactions. And we're focused on ensuring that that's as easy and timely as possible to make happen. I think the other point to make here is in terms of data integrations, it's not just about getting good data in. It's also about, as I said earlier, as brands are making significant investments in their big data capabilities, ensuring that those teams have unfettered, free access to the data that has been ingested and then normalized in this platform. For all the investment that's been made in bringing this data in and normalizing it and make sense of it, if you've then created a big data analytics team that can't access this data, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think you guys touched on this one already, but maybe we want to just sort of go a little bit more in depth, and that's how important is data quality? I guess it's the old garbage in, garbage out issue here. So maybe you want to touch on some of that.
Yeah, I just I had a quick stat that we have from our survey of analytics pros, and what we've seen is that that data quality aspect, right, is still a pretty large stumbling block for most marketers. 65% of, it was about 100 analytics pros that we surveyed, right, are still saying that managing data from disparate sources and ensuring the quality of that data is still, a major concern of theirs. So, it's important. I think along with data quality, it's important for marketers to start to think about and understand, what they can do from a process and troubleshooting and data quality standpoint to continually strive for, the highest quality of data that they can, right? But understanding that it is going to be a continual process. It's not just a one-time investment of resources to get that quality data.
Agreed. And so in addition to agreeing that you need to make sure the data you're using is of high quality, I'll comment again on the point I made earlier. The role of a DMP is to ingest this data and then normalize it so that you can make sense of it all together. And you need to ensure that processing is as high quality as possible as well. Because you can take good data in from multiple sources, but then if in the process of joining it together you make a mess of it, you're not going to make the right decisions. So using an example here of onboarding again, many customers are fairly comfortable with their quality of their input data. This is their own data. They certainly know who their customers are. But in the process of making that available online, if you're running it through a process that does some statistical modeling that is inaccurate, you can end up with a campaign that was designed to ensure that you increased efficiency by targeting or suppressing your customers that actually has the exact opposite effect if you've introduced noise into the system through a low-quality process.
Okay, so let's jump to our last question as part of the presentation, and just a reminder, if you do have questions for our speakers, just use your Q&A tool, and we'll pop back on and remind you about that. But the last question here is how do marketers evaluate whether DMP is a good investment?
Yeah, and I think we talked a lot about this throughout the process as well, especially when talking about that organizational change. Right? I think it's slowly moving out of the sort of media departments or the media team's realm and into being evaluated closer to how marketing technology maybe has been evaluated in the past. I think it's important to remember that it's certainly a long-term investment. I think the goal is to try to identify certain bottlenecks in workflow where the centralization of that data and getting it to the different teams that can utilize that data starts to add value and efficiencies, and can certainly start to become quantifiable, and that, of course, that immediate efficiency in creating more effective and efficient digital media plans is something that's immediately sort of measurable, but really, as Michael and I discussed before, it's not about keeping it within the media department budgeting and determining whether or not it's valuable just based within that channel. I think the silver lining here is that, from the marketers that we've talked to, is that, attitudinally they realize that marketing technology is still valuable, and it's an investment that they need to make. But it's I think there's still a little bit of ways to go to make that leap from just leaving it within your digital media buying practices and spreading that value and understanding how that investment impacts the other parts of the marketing organization.
Yeah, so I'd actually turn this question around a little bit. I mean, I think from my perspective, I think it's kind of a truism that all marketers of a certain size are going to find that they need a DMP in order to continue to grow their businesses. And so the question shouldn't be, how do I evaluate if I should invest in a DMP? It's really, how do I ensure that the investment I'm making in a DMP is going to be a good one? And I think as Richard said, the key is you need to go into this type of initiative with a really good understanding of what you're looking to achieve, and it should be the big scope, not the little scope. So if you go into a DMP initiative and your focus is just about improving your digital media buying, you're likely to invest a lot of money with relatively little to show for it. So you need to go into this with a broader picture of what you're looking to achieve. You need to think about how this is going to impact your organization. So think about how your analytics teams are really going to be leveraging the data that a DMP can make available across your entire marketing strategy. You need to think about the partnership. As Richard commented on, the complexity of these solutions and the staffing needs that they imply. Think about your relationship and partnership with the vendor that you're talking to ensure that they're the right folks to partner with you and drive to success. Clearly, given everything we've said about this 360 degree of the consumer, you need a platform that can help deliver that. So someone who's got the good offline authoritative identity and the ability to link that to cookies and devices and to the call center and to email and every other channel in which consumers are increasingly engaging with brands nowadays. And then finally, again, this is a partnership, and so you need to go into these initiatives with a shared common understanding of the goals and the metrics. So when you're working with a partner, make sure that everyone knows what we're driving towards. Everyone knows how the initiative is going to be measured. Put in place milestones, and then track success against those milestones as you move the project forward.
Yeah, I think that's really key across internal and external partners, right? So I totally agree there.
Great.
Okay, so let's I was going to say, let's go to the questions from the audience, and I just want to remind the people attending today's webinar, if you do have a question, to use the Q&A widget, and if you want to see a copy of today's slide deck, you can download that from the resource list folder on 24. It's the green one shaped like a file folder. So let's jump to the first question that we got here from the audience. We were doing a lot of time defining a DMP, and I think we got a question here on whether you sort of what's the difference between a DMP and a marketing stack, or a DMP and a CRM system?
So Richard, I'll take a first pass at this. I mean, I think one of the challenges is in defining a DMP in terms of those other terms. You kind of need to define those terms at first as well. And I think marketing stack is probably the toughest because that's really general. I think what we see marketers using the term marketing stack to refer to the entire ecosystem of technologies, partners, internal solutions that they deploy to solve their marketing needs. And a DMP is going to be an important component of that. And I think you certainly can draw a visual in which a DMP may be kind of near the center or at the center of that marketing stack. But it's certainly not going to be the entire stack. A marketing stack is going to be inclusive of things like media execution platforms, which clearly a DMP is not. A CRM or a customer relationship management platform is a platform that many brands use for managing their customer relationships. So a platform such as Salesforce, for example, where a brand might keep track of all of their direct customer interactions. And those tend to have identifiable customers. And so you'll often hear folks in the space talking about CRM onboarding, which is about providing the translation between the CRM files that a brand may have in their CRM system, so information about consumer by consumer past behavior, and making that available into the DMP for translation into the digital space.
Yeah, I certainly agree that about the comment of the DMP being a component of a larger sort of data management initiative or process, right? I think one thing that's pretty common across the industry is that anonymization of that data, right? To be compliant with and respect the privacy rights that consumers have, and for me, the DMP plays a large role in being able to make those connections, but also ensuring that you're following those governance and data guidelines.
Okay, we've probably got maybe another 3 to 4 minutes here, so let's try to get to a couple more of these. Someone here's asking, with omnichannel remarketing, is the DMP making offer decisioning suggestions, such as when to remarket or which channel to use, or is it just providing a list of customers to remarket to?
Michael, do you want to take? I mean, I can speak from kind of adoption of that now versus what it could be potentially.
Yes. So why don't you take it first?
Yeah, I would say in a lot of cases it's more of the latter. And we're just starting to get into, again, early days, so just starting to explore the idea that we can start building, for example, the next best offer model, being able to say, okay, because we know this user and we know that this user has bought these types of products, we should also deliver messaging to them that that highlights these other type of products that they have in common with other users who have bought this product. I think more sophisticated marketers are certainly pushing their technology partners to help them accomplish things like that. But I think from a widely adopted standpoint, that's still something that that marketers are trying to learn and develop and create processes for.
Yeah, I agree that this is definitely part of the unfulfilled promise typically today. I mean, certainly that's where we're focused in terms of working with our clients to leverage the insights that we provide. And we've worked and are working to ensure that our tools are really guided towards making those insights as actionable as possible, so that the DMP is not just a dumb bucket of potential targets, but that we really drive you to making the right media investments, the right marketing decisions to improve ROI.
Okay, let's got time for maybe one more. Let's see if we can give this one a quick answer. Someone sort of wanted to go back to the where you were covering some of how the DMP gathers offline data, and they were wondering how the DMP I guess both gathers the offline data and how does it link it to the online data?
So I'll provide the answer from Neustar's perspective because I think our approach to this is a little bit different from some others. As we said at the very start, a DMP is typically not in practice as broad as the definition that Richard provided from the Forrester perspective. A DMP is typically a digital platform for managing cookie pool-based lists of users. And for that type of DMP, when we talk about offline data, we're talking about using the onboarding process that I've described. So there are partners like Neustar and others who are able to take offline data sets that brands may have in CRM files or in offline sales transactions, and through connections, through email address, phone number, name, and address, are able to find the cookies and devices that are associated with that offline identity, and able to bring, in an anonymous, privacy-safe way, bring the offline segment information. This customer is a customer, has purchased a lot, has executed a sales transaction, bring that information, translate it into the world of cookies that a DMP can deal with. So that's the traditional answer. I think Neustar's answer is broader because, again, we're focused on at getting at the broader definition of a DMP, in that our Platform 1 does not just deal with cookies and devices, but we can deal with individual level consumer information, still in an anonymous and privacy-safe way, because we have a segmentation model that then operates across all channels, even when there isn't a corresponding cookie or device that may be available.
Michael, Richard, thank you both. Very informative and insight-rich presentation here. I want to thank our audience for taking time out of their busy day to attend today's webinar. And if you're interested in any upcoming Adweek webinars, we urge you to go to www.adweek.com/webinars. Again, thank you all very much.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.